So I'm just going to show you some knives that I have customized using synthetic Rit Dye. You can get these bottles at like Walmart. I'm sure you can get them at Hobby Lobby and some other places like that. Typically it's for dyeing clothes, but you can use it to dye plastics, bone, G10, which is a plastic, I guess. Pretty much anything that's, you know, pretty much anything light enough that you can dye, you should pretty much be able to dye with this. Now you want to make sure you get the synthetic if you're going to dye plastic or G10, because the regular Rit dye that isn't synthetic won't work. I know that from experience. But anyway, this is the first knife that I did. This is a Ontario Rat 1. This one was a light tan, or I forget what they call it. They call it like flat dark earth or something, I think, because they have to use the technical terminology, but it was like a very light tan, almost like a white. It's kind of cool looking. I'm probably going to end up buying another one at some point. Probably a Rat 2 and just leaving it, the scales of that color, because it was a pretty cool color. But I bought this with the sole intention of dyeing these handle scales purple with some purple Rit dye that I had laying around, because I did some Magpul PMags, some sand colored Magpul PMags purple, so I had some purple Rit dye just laying around. So this was the first knife that I did, and I was really happy with how it came out. So that led me on this kind of adventure, Rit dyeing some other things. So that's the purple Rat 1 that I think came out pretty well. The next knife that I Rit dyed had to, of course, be a case Sod Buster. All of you who know this channel well know how much I like the case Sod Buster. The problem with the case Sod Buster is I really like the chrome vanadium steel, because it stains in patinas and all that, and, you know, carbon steel is just cool, I think. And, you know, on traditional knives and everything, I just prefer carbon steel. Unfortunately, you can't get the CV blades in anything other than the yellow synthetic, and I think for the Sod Buster Junior there's like maybe 2 bone handles that you can get the CV with, but those are like $50, and I don't really want to spend $50 on a case Sod Buster. It's not really the point with a case Sod Buster. So I took my yellow CV full-size Sod Buster that I had, and I dyed it purple. Now the purple's not coming across great on this camera. It's probably my lighting. But under some, you know, better lighting conditions, it is fairly purple. And again, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Now around the edges and stuff, it came out a little darker than on the face of the handles, which just adds a little bit more of a cool factor, I think. I think it just looks pretty neat. So that's my purple case Sod Buster. And then the next knife that I did, speaking of Sod Buster Junior, once again, can only get, well, like I said, you can get two different bone ones with the CV, but I'm not going to spend $50 on a Sod Buster Junior. That's kind of ridiculous. So I bought the yellow synthetic one with the CV steel, and then I decided I was going to dye it blue this time, because I already had a purple full-size Sod Buster, so I figured, oh, you know, I'll make a blue CV Sod Buster Junior. And once again, it came out pretty well. I really, you know, like the way that these Sod Busters come out when I dye them. Of course, with it being carbon steel, and I don't disassemble these, not the Sod Busters or any traditional knife that I'm dyeing. So with the carbon steel, you have to kind of cover the blade a little bit. With this one, I used one of those marker pens, and that worked pretty well. With the full-size Sod Buster, I tried to use masking tape, and that worked a lot less well, as you can imagine. And then last, I did this Buck 371 Stockman in a red dyed color. This started out, it was probably what Buck would call amber jig bone. Let me see, I have kind of an example here. If I can find where it's at. Is that it? I think that's it. No. Here we go. It kind of looked like this, pretty much. This is a Rough Rider, but it kind of looked like this. I didn't hate it, but I didn't particularly love it either, so I kind of decided I was going to dye this bone on here. I was going to try to do that. And I think it turned out really well. So basically, if you don't know how to Rit Dye things, you just add some Rit Dye into some water, and you bring it up to, some people say a boil. I usually do almost a boil, and I usually let them sit in there for quite a long time. I think if you add more Rit Dye, I don't really add a whole lot of Rit Dye because I like to, keep it around for as long as possible because it's like $5 or something like that for a bottle. But if you dump like half the bottle in, you can dye stuff a lot faster. But yeah, so maybe at some point I'll do a video on how to Rit Dye things, and I'll show you the process on how to do that. But today I just figured I would show off these 4 knives that I have quote-unquote customized with Rit Dye, because I think they all came out pretty cool. So anyway, that's going to be it for this video.